friends. As you know, I don't like to gossip or brag about Freemasonry, but Masonic corruption is just not right, and we need to brag about this big time. You know what I mean? The dam is breaking. It's wonderful news to me. And there's a new variant called Waking Up, and it's spreading so fast around the world. The Dom Wiz and the knowledge, that's what Dom Wiz means, DOMWIS. It's a Masonic password. Wisdom, you see, it's knowledge. You have the Dom Wiz, the knowledge to wake up other people. So please share my work. But yeah, I hope you catch it and you wake up and understand everything I'm now telling you in this next video on Heraldy. Now, this here, yeah, is Masonic, of course. It's come off, look, it's the Masonic Lewis, yeah, off their own sites. And like I said, in everything, they show us what's and who controls everything. You know, I've shown this sign so many times. Look, it's the 4 square, yeah, 4 squares, yeah. All right. And what does 4 squares translate into? 666 of Lucifer, yeah. So just remember this sign, okay, because I'm going to show you it soon in this video, okay. Watch that. Remember, it's 666 for Lucifer. Those who know my videos know exactly what that represents, yeah. Okay, the 13 steps in Freemasonry, that's what that represents, you know what I mean? Oh, the 13 steps in Freemasonry. So remember that. Again, it's a bit higgledy-piggledy, but hopefully it'll come out as I need it and as I want it, yeah? This is the Lewis, right? A Lewis, right, is that little sign there, yeah? That's what a Lewis is, okay? And it's a young Freemason, okay? That's what that represents, a man. You know, a Mason's son is called a Lewis, yeah, and they're normally the ones that are running the drugs in your community and doing all the naughty pieces, you know, running around as a gang, protecting each other and intimidate, you know, using intimidating types of tactics to keep or suppress people that are a threat to their society. But that's another story. But here we go. Look. Happy 78th birthday to Her Majesty the Queen. Congratulations to the worshipful company of stationers and newspaper makers, yeah. So these, yeah, this is, so everything is a guild, yeah, in Freemasonry. Like, you know, you've got newspaper people, printers, you've got people that are specialized in gold, you know, copper, you know, hammering out copper, brass, brickmakers, stonemasons, everything's got a guild or a craft, yeah, like in woodwork or in steel, you know, metallurgy or whatever, that's what they call it, you know what I mean, because it's like Hogwarts, yeah, and each person has got, you know, a speciality, whether it's hypnosis, you know, or gang stalking, you know, all of that they teach within the Masonic Lodge, yeah. But just to show you, look, the Lewis Past Master Stationers and Provisional Grand Master of Middlesex, yeah, Dave Allen, right? Now, look, on Tuesday, the 15th of July, yeah, the Queen was clothed in the livery of the Stationers, a newspaper makers company, because they own all the newspapers anyway, and they own your radio stations, and I'm on about your local ones, you know, but that's another story. You know, so here you going on about it, yeah. The ceremony, look, was witnessed by the Right Honourable, you see, the Lord Mayor, because it's Lords, Dukes and Earls, the Aldermen, you see, they're not going anywhere, you know what I mean? The Sheriff, do you see what I mean? Right. Now, if we go to the next page, yeah, the ceremony was witnessed by the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor of London, Alderman Alistair King, DL, Sheriff Alderman Greg Jones, KC, see, and this is the thing what you're dealing with all the time, that sirs, lords, dukes and earls, yeah, OBEs, KCBs, all them little names, this is where they're getting their promotion and when they get their honours, yeah, you know, and protect me, protect the royals, but remember, it isn't just these royals, it's the ones that are within your towns and within your cities, what I'm going to show you in a minute, okay, they're the families, and it all comes under heraldry, yeah. Okay, right, wait a minute. His mate sponsor ceremony were the first 2 women masters of the company, Helen Edmund and Moira Slight. Yeah, so And as you can see, look, you see on the left shoulder and on the right shoulder of the Queen, yeah, who likes to have an affair. But anyway, that's another story. You can see the heraldy on the shoulders, okay? See this heraldy on both shoulders, okay? The heraldy. In the back, these are all Freemasons, yeah? All of these are top family members. You won't get in there because you're not blood. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, these are the people. Oops, sorry, I keep doing that. I don't know why it's playing up. You see, all of these are Freemasons. You see, each and every one of these are lords, dukes and earls. Their families look after each other. And what I want you to take, apart from the red sashes and like there's the Queen in the middle and you got the other dude there and what have you, right? Apart from the people sitting, yeah, in their red sashes, what I want you to take close attention to is at the top of the picture, in the top right, you've got 4 shields. You see the 4 shields? That's the heraldy. Okay, you've also got a crown there just below, look. And if you look in the windows, you can see the circles within the squares, blah, blah, blah. And then on this side, you've got another 4 shields, but it's obviously 5 or whatever because we can't see them. But can you see the shields? And that's the families here that have been willed down by nepotism for years, decades, and centuries, okay? All of this has been willed down. There's the sun hieroglyph, look, above the door. Okay, these are all Freemasons, Eastern Stars, and worshipful Grand Masters, yeah? Knights, Templars, Lords, Dukes, and Earls, yeah? So that's what you're dealing with, yeah? And what the Freemasons are protecting, yeah? That heraldry, yeah? Now, this guy here, right, this Stupert Lowe, right, he's our local MP, Stupert Lowe, right, a drug dealer or a bouncer or whatever was giving him right praise, going, yeah, follow him, he gives all his money to charity and shit like that. The people he keep giving the money to are actually people that are established within the Masonic Lodge, and it's their charities, do you know what I mean? And the things they run, yeah, the Freemasons have control of. So when he's giving his money away, it's not to anything profane, he's actually just donating to more profane, to more Masonic brothers, you know, and because they're getting donated to because they're part of the Masonic Lodge and that nation of people. He's donating nothing to profane people, you know what I mean? Again, you know, I'll call him out and say, why aren't you putting, you know, solar panels on people's fucking roofs? Do you know what I mean? So they're getting free electric. Why aren't they doing that? You know what I mean? You know, you can go get yourself a free, you know, chip or something, blah, blah, blah. And again, I've shown that so many times in my forum. Hopefully I'll remember and I'll show you, yeah, where they put all the chips out and where it comes from. But it's all a Masonic system anyway. But again, why ain't he putting his money every month, what he says he works for free, but he don't because he's paid by the lodge. You know, they all get paid in oil and water, but it's payment anyway. As they go up through the ranks, they're given more money, more wealth and more power. Yeah, but that's another story, as you've seen in my videos. But this is him, look, the Great Yarmouth Mercury, yeah, right, did this post about him, but the Great Yarmouth Mercury is the Freemasons. You see what I mean? So all they're doing, and this is what they do all the time, yeah, because you ain't got to go to the world news or anything like that, yeah. They play it out in your towns and cities, the new, you know, a theatre, right, you say this, and then I can say that, and that gives us something we can put in the paper, what is no good anyway to anyone, do you know what I mean? But it plays an act out and stages a thing for them to put something in the paper. Do you see what I mean? And then people say, oh, did you see it? And that gives people something to talk about. Nothing what's of importance or anything else that's going to change anything. You know what I mean? So long as we can keep people tricked and fooled for another fucking generation while we carry on in the way we've been going on for decades and centuries, yeah? And that's all it is. You know what I mean? Should the death penalty be reinstated? Well, if they did reinstate it, half the Masonic worshipful masters and grand masters would be the first to go, wouldn't we? Because all the corruption for the monstrous crimes they've done against humanity, including me for gang stalking, drug dealing, perverting me and God knows whatever else, yeah? Yeah, that's what the Freemasons are in this town. I know exactly who they are, what they are. Do you know what I mean? They're well in the Minster here as well, so don't even be fooled about their religion and all that shit, but that's another story. But here we go, you know what I mean? This Mercury and him are just playing out a theatre, because that's what it is. It's just a theatre and a game. You say this and I'll say it, and that's all they do in each town and city. You say this, you do this, and they keep getting the, you know, they play this little plays out to us and really solved nothing. Do you know what I mean? But like I said, if you was going to do something for charity, stop giving it to your brotherhood. Do you know what I mean? And your friends that are running these certain things that you can look it up if you want to see who they are. But most of them are all within the lodge, and he's only given his brothers a chance. He's not giving anyone else a chance. If not, he would be putting free solar panels on everyone's fucking roof. Do you know what I mean? And doing some real good. You know what I mean? And that includes all these people. I've told you about the lotteries and the fucking whatever else, all that money they gain. Just from water rates, taxes, and all the fines and everything else they pull in. Do you know what I mean? When do they put one solar panel on one person's roof to help them? But you want to get chipped and they'll give it to you free. Actually, they'll give you donuts, tea and coffee for free just so you go get it. Do you know what I mean? But that's another story. Anyway, yeah, that's what I put. That'll be the Masonic Brotherhood, all lined up within every town and city. Their crimes against humanity knows no bounds, baby, no bounds. But that's what I put on his silly little post anyway. Now, here we go about the Heraldy again. Yeah, let me just push this in. Right, Norfolk, UK has a significant heraldry, including the arms of Norfolk County Council, because that's what you're dealing with within every county or state. If you're in America, they're all to do with heraldry and families. And then families, as I said, the villagers look after the towns, and then the towns look after the cities, and the cities look after the counties or the states, blah, blah, blah. And as it go up, and there's certain families within your town right now, right today, that are there looking after themselves, allowed to deal drugs to keep the chaos going within your neighbourhood. They're your crime lords, yeah. They've been there centuries. You can't shift them out because they'll move against you. They'll either kill you or make you an accident or knock you off your bike or put you in prison, yeah. This is how they've been getting away with it for centuries and decades. And everyone's isolated. Yeah, that's the problem with it. Yeah, everyone is isolated, so you've got to take it into your own self and just, you ain't got to worry about the world. What you've actually got to do is take out the people within your communities that are the rotten core that have been there centuries and decades. The lords, the dukes, and the earls. Now, I'm not saying. What I'm saying is I could say vote them out, but they cheat the vote all the time and put in who they want when they want. You know what I mean? And if you had someone who's rotten in there, yeah, or a criminal, which they are, because they've got no problem of pushing someone who's good out or making an accident and killing them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's why they got all these positions of power, because it's going back centuries and decades. But they make you think you've got to try and vote someone out in London, or you've got to get someone out in America, and all of these different other places. Again, playing a theoretical act, yeah, where you think you can't do nothing because the world is so big, yeah. But it ain't about that. It's about your community. Your community is your world, yeah. Your town or your city is your world, yeah. Yeah, and you've got to clean up your own world within your own community. Do you see what I mean? And if you keep allowing these people to do as they want, when they want, these families that think they're privileged and have the right through God, yeah, and king and country, whatever, or through bloodlines to carry on the way they did, we'll never ever get out of being poverty, peasants, or poor people. Do you know what I mean? We'll always be suffering, as all peasants do, yeah, and all they do is ride right over us, yeah. Anyway, yeah, look, and it's going on about the families in Norfolk here. Anyway, you can read it as you want. Towns like King's Lynn, Hunstanton, and this is where all the heraldry goes for. Look, top of the shield. It's now giving you, the Norfolk Shield, what it all stands for. Okay, but I'll show you more of that as we go on. Now, again, look, North Norfolk District Council. See, your district councils, yeah, are of knights sitting round a round table, yeah, which are Freemasons, yeah. Right, and they sit round the hearth of the community, the heart, you see, heart, Heart, the heart of the community, which used to be the hearth, the fire where everyone went, and then you had strong leaders, these kings, queens, lords, dukes, or whatever, and they looked after the best interest of the main leaders wherever they may resided or whatever, and nothing's changed in billions of years, yeah. Then you got King's Lynn Borough Council, and then Hunstanton, that goes on like that, yeah. And then it goes Herald's Arms Extraordinaire, and it tells you the different positions of them people, yeah. A Royal Herald, but not a member of the College of Arms, yeah. Historically, this herald was associated with the Dukes of Norfolk and was sometimes paid by the King, yeah. Now, this still goes on, yeah. He still pays them, yeah, to look after their best interest, okay, yeah, and they pay the king back in favour for allowing them to have them certain privileges, like they own the shops, yeah. They own all the leases to the shops. They're your bankers. They're your postmasters. They're your, all the important things within your town and city. They run, they control. They're your taxi drivers. They run them, for instance, just as an example. Okay. And the coat of arms is here, look, you see? All right. So that's the coat of arms of Norfolk County Council, right? And if we go on, yeah, this is North Norfolk, a family. That's another family of coat of arms, you see, and they protect the other families within that, whether it's Cromer, Eppingham, North Walsham, Sheringham, Smallborough, Walsham, all these, wells next to the sea. So these are the families that control that area from their castle, which they're not castles anymore. They've come out of the castles and now they have Masonic lodges, or they call them temples. Yeah, it's just life's changed and upgraded itself. Yeah, here's the arms of Norfolk County Council. Yeah, look, and that's what it is. Look, the king in the royal license specifically instructs the design of the arms to be granted in commemoration of our long residence in Norfolk, which refers to the royal residence in Sandringham. Now, who's in Sandringham? Say no more. Right, the arms are blazoned or described as follows: pure pale or a sable, ermines and lions. I'll get into that in a minute, right? But there's, again, with that coat of arms comes, like, you've got animals, right? There's coats of arms that have specific animals on there, right? What then becomes them specific tribes, yeah. Like the gangs of New York, yeah. There was rabbits, there was the rabbits, there was this, there was that, yeah. And what these people are, these gangs, yeah, because that's what they are. They corrupt career criminals and gangs, yeah, that have these certain heraldies, yeah, and they call themselves the rabbits, the ducks, it doesn't matter what it is, the boars, the wild hogs, whatever you want to call it, that's what they, and then you add on to that, yeah, and then you add on, like, a castle or a moat or a sky banner, and then it comes into colours, blah, 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 yeah. But you can read it yourselves and search it up. I could go into it all the time. Like, look, you've got ears of wheat. Watch the ears of wheat. I can't remember what it represent now, wheat. But anyway, you've got coronets, look, winged demi-lion, argent, the wings of a semi or amulets of the gules, drucul gorged, or the motto, rident Florento Plata, our flowering fields rejoice, So they always have the motto as well. And this is what these people, these Freemasons, learn within the Masonic Lodge, as they're being raised up. They learn all this heraldry, especially that, and I'm not on about the ones that get asked to join and be a ring of protection for the corrupt career criminals within the centre, that had gone back decades and had funny handshakes on battlefields and things like that. If you do this, we'll give you land, entitlement, and God knows whatever else. In fact, we'll even look the other way when you deal drugs and do a bit of crime here and there. Do you know what I mean? We won't come after you. That's what it's all about, yeah. But these are the coat of arms that the families that they protect, and this is why they're the untouchables all the time, yeah. So that's what it is. So there's your Freebridge Lynn Rural District Council. Then you've got Kings Lynn, right, Borough Council. No, each heraldry is different, yeah. That's what you're dealing with, families, all right. And it tells you, the 3 dragon heads, yeah, erect and erased, or in the mouth of each crosslet fitchy at the last. So don't, I might be pronouncing some of this stuff, because I don't really know, how to pronounce some of it. But the point of the matter is the heraldry, yeah? Okay? Or on the sinister side, a seagull proper beaked, or each gorged with an ancient crown lined, or in the beak a rows of gules, whatever that means. But you can read that to your own leisure and pronounce it right in your own way. Right, here again, look, St Faith's and Aylsham Rural District Council. Remember, this is your councils, yeah? Each council means basically there's a council of men, knights, grandmaster, knights, whatever, and they deem what they see, or they look after that sort of county, yeah, that whether it's Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, whatever, and them Knights Templars, yeah, look after that. And then under them, they've got their own underlings and their own families that are brought up knowing exactly what this means, with signs and symbols that help them keep the control over the states or the counties they are ruling for, the obviously the elites that run the countries, you know, or the world, or whatever you want to call it, yeah. And that's the big secret, really. Basically, it's all done through this Masonic symbolism and heraldry. You know, you can look at the floor, you know, look at the different heraldry on it, and each one, like I says, has its own what they call it, the own motto or logo, their own colours, you know. And this is what you're dealing with in each and every town and city of across the world. And I'm talking America. I'll show you that in a minute, yeah. But here you go again. Look, you know, look, is an officer of arms, yeah, because they're the, you know, they're your Knights Templars, and these are the people, like they did when Hitler rose up to power. These are the same men that'll bash any opposition. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and they'll ride right over you. You know, whether they'll use a gun, a baton, or fucking whatever, it doesn't matter so long as they squash or repel the profane people. You know, they'll stand with the profane people. Do you see what I mean? And then in the background, you think you're attacking the front, but you ain't. They're behind you throwing bricks at your head when you think the bricks are being thrown at the enemy, but they're not. They're being thrown at the back of your head because they identify you as profane. Do you know what I mean? So you've got enemies standing amongst you when you're, you know, doing all these protests. They're standing amongst you, and they're picking you out. Trust me, you know. And they're oh no, mate, I'll tell you. Anyway, I've shown that in videos as well. But again, look, 1539. This officer was a herald of the Dukes of Norfolk, though first holder John James was paid a salary by King Henry VIII. Subsequent Norfolk heralds have been officers extraordinary through the officers have not always been filled, but rather revived when required. The badge of officer signed in blah 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 is blamed. Now it gives you the 2 ostrich feathers by 3 linked chains by the look of things, yeah. And 3 linked chains is the order of I forgot what they are now, bloody hell. Which the 3 links mean something I can't remember, sorry, you know what I mean, bloody blah blah blah. But again, 3 link chains on each side, again representing the 6. We know the cross makes 5, yeah, which then goes to 2 3 2, blah blah blah, but that's another story. But as you can see, again, it's the heraldry, yeah, of what represents everything in our lives. The families that are controlling our towns and our cities, and we've allowed them to do this for centuries and decades, okay? Like here, for instance, the country, United Kingdom of England, yeah? There's the heraldry, look, yeah? There's the motto, right? There's the family, yeah? And that's in Kings Lynn and West Norfolk, yeah? The Rural District Council, and that's the council, the family that looks after Kings Lynn and West Norfolk, yeah, this family here. Again, here we go again. Look, the coat of arms. Okay, notice that the animals, yeah, are different. Okay, and then you've got 2 willies on either side. Is that, or is that 2 feathers with crowns atop? But again, it represents something, you know. Right, why I saved that one, I don't know. Right, the coat of arms, the composition of coat of arms are generally public domain with respect to copyright law, yeah, and may be reproduced freely. This corresponds to the international traditional usage and is explicitly stated in some national copyright laws. Some compositions of more recent origins may be copyrighted, right? So anyway, like I said, this stuff is very, very serious. This is going on within our towns, within our cities. These people are hiding behind Masonic aprons, and we don't even know who the frig they are. These families like this, heraldry in Norfolk churches, right? Again, because it all bases down to this is where I'm getting into it, okay? This is where they control our town halls, okay? And then you've got other families, right, that look up to the town halls, yeah? So the town halls give them directions, and then the town halls give them directions to look after the churches, or vice versa. I don't know who runs what or what, don't ask me, yeah? It's all the same anyway. They're all on the level. So long as the profane don't get up there, it doesn't matter. Do you see what I mean? So here we are with, again, the shields of the Knights Templars, yeah, and the families, yeah, the different families like Bircher, Calthorpe, Carr. Do you know what I mean? Each and every one of these families here look after the churches within Norfolk, yeah. Don't get me wrong. There's people in, in Essex, Suffolk, any county you can think of within the UK and in the United States and any other country, yeah, they have their own Knights Templars, families that have been willed down centuries and decades, where they keep breeding and grooming their own children into these positions of power, yeah, and they know exactly what's going on. It's all a Game of Thrones. Again, look, notice the different shields, look, you see, heraldry in Norfolk churches. Notice the families are small shields, right? And then you've got two big major shields, look, because it's Henry the Thingy and the Prince of Wales, look, you see? Okay, so these kings, yeah, are being looked now after the families above and the families below, you see? Like Bardolph, Beaufort, Beatra. You may not find them today, okay? Because they change their names all the time. Yeah, like I said, it doesn't matter. The end result is the profane peasants do not rise above their station. Yeah, okay. But these people change their names or whatever they want to do just to keep you all confused about who's who and who is your enemy. You know what I mean? We don't wear our Masonic aprons out in the open. We don't wear our shields out in the open. So when what we do to you, you look at a suit or a uniform and you blame that suit and that uniform. But really, it's these guys running it. Do you know what I mean? And showing you, through their importance of what they know. They know their shields. They understand it all. I don't. I wish I fucking did, But these are the names that Ufford, Stapleton, Rollers, Sheldon, Smith. I can't see it. Sandpeter, you know what I mean? The cross keys. But if you notice, it's all Masonic symbolism, yeah? And these are the people you're going up against, you know what I mean? These families. Heraldy in Norfolk again. Look, oops, sorry. Hello. How did I get up there that quick? I couldn't have got up there that quick. Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, let me go back to it. All right. So again, this is it. Look, Heraldy. Oh, yeah, here we go. Heraldy at Sandringham, yeah? Prepared by the Norfolk Herald. So look, we've got Lovell, right? Then we got Falstaff. Everyone knows Falstaff Road. We've got Falstaff Pub. You know what I mean? All to do with that family of places that are being named after these people and these families. Yeah, these are the people. You've got Scalesies. But let's just see. The family had been seated in Barton Bandish, Norfolk since the 1300s. So you imagine how long these Lovells have gone back to the 1300s. And you think, yeah, a profane peasant like you with no history, no bloodline or anything else is going to oust these Lovells out? No, they're protected by the other families. Do you see what I mean? So from in the last half of the 15th century, Sir Henry Bedingfield sold East Harling, Norfolk, to Sir Thomas Lovell. You see, they sell it to each other. Sirs, Knights Templars, yeah. K.G. Knights of the Garter, is that maybe? Uncle to Sir Francis, you see. They're all knights, lords, dukes and earls, yeah. And you think you're going to get a slice of that land, that gold, that wealth, and all that taxing they've been doing over the years? What they still tax you for today? The land, all the land, who's owning their own land today? No one. No one owns nothing. They own it all. Right, in the stained glass church, and again I'll get to the churches and the other pieces where all this heraldry comes from. Yeah. South aisle, east window, Sir Thomas Lovell, KG, has his arms within the garter with an annular on the chevrons, denoting a fifth son as he was, because he's the fifth son. And again, like I said, it all goes to their Lewises, and all willed down by nepotism. The power, the shops, the wealth, everything. These people don't want for nothing, none of them. So here we go. The arms with the crescent and the chevron denoting the second son are on Sir Francis' imposing heraldic tomb. Sorry, on the north side of the sanctuary in East Harling Church. There was a second son, Gregory, the Garter Knight, eldest brother, again, which is Masonic, okay, who was knight at the Battle of Stoke in 1487. So you imagine that, yeah, by Margaret, daughter of Sir William Brandon, who had been standard bearer to the Henry Tudor at the Battle of Boswell's Field. But that's what you're dealing with, these people. Falstaff family shield only, yeah. The family has resided in Great Yarmouth since the 1200s, yeah. So you imagine that since the 1200s, these Masonic families, right, have been ruling over Great Yarmouth. That's why we've got roads called like Falstaff Avenue, the Falstaff Pub, blah blah blah. That's why people that run pubs like the King's Arms are the Masonic thing, and their heraldry and their station within the Masonic Lodge. Yeah, they're on a different education to us. Do you know what I mean? You know, so you watch it, you know, the people that run these pubs, and you'll see the heraldry of it all. Do you know what I mean? I'll get some pictures. I'll show you. You know what I mean? You just got to look around to certain pubs, and you'll see the heraldry on the fucking pubs. Do you know what I mean? The same shields, the same thing, because that's all to do with their bloodline and all passed and willed down. Yeah. And like I said, a lot of the drugs come from those places. Anyway, that's another story. That there are arms appearing over a tomb niche in the south wall of St Nicholas Church. Now, in the beginning of this video, you'll hear me talk about the Minster, yeah, which is St Nicholas Church. I think it's this church, or was it the other church? I can't remember. But I've shown you videos of both churches anyway, where there's a big, you know, you go in any church, it doesn't matter what church it is, you'll see the shields on the wall, you'll see the heraldry on the wall, all from the same Masonic, you know, families that have run your towns and cities for decades and centuries, yeah? And these people are all working against you all the time. And it's been going down through the centuries and decades, yeah? See, this said John Falstaff, fame for, and was created a Knight of the Garter. See, Knight of the Garter. What's the Knight of the Garter? Oh, he's a Freemason. Do you see what I mean? However, the Garter stall plate shows Sir John Falstaff different in his arms, with crosses on the bend instead of the shells to be seen here, as he was the only family member to do so. See, so it does change, you know what I mean? Then you've got the scales, you know, and it goes on, you know, again, Lord Scales, Knight of the Garter, you know what I mean? And then you've got another Lord Scales led to the right wing of the vanguard for Henry VII, who was with 2,000 horses at the Battle of Stoke near Newark. See, 2,000 horses, yeah? You imagine them ploughing into the peasants, you know what I mean? Crazy. They had the best weapons, you know, they've always had the best weapons. They got the best weapons today. And you go against these people, yeah, and they send in the army, what are you going to do? Grab your kitchen knife? See what I mean? That's the difference, you know. These people are well armed, you know. They've got armies to protect themselves across the world, you know. Let's just say we got together, UK, you know, and we had, you know, some other countries and whatever. Yeah, it don't matter who it is. The other countries would come after us and pretend like whatever, but what it would be the families and the heraldry and the bloodlines protecting the other bloodlines. Do you see what I mean? And that's what it's all about, you know. Crazy, but that's what it's about anyway. You know, these are the people you're dealing with within every town and city. Look, the heraldry of Howard, look, the earlier Howards, look. I'll let you read that rather than me go through it, you know what I mean? But again, look, that knack in very good marriages, and eventually by choosing the winning side of the civil wars, yeah, they always had a knack of winning the civil wars. It wasn't a knack, it's just that civil wars thinned out the empire. Yeah, it allowed them to take over the properties, yeah, of anyone that got killed, yeah. You'll come into war, come on. That house, he get killed during the war, yeah. He gets sent, like you go to war, yeah. There's a guy there, you go, right, you're jumping over the bunker, yeah, for instance. And you go, no, and you go, right, you're a deserter, bang. Every profane person in that trench goes, shit, I'm now going to jump over that wall, over that trench, because if not, I'm going to get killed, you know what I mean? Rather than go, let's kill the captain and the sergeant. You know what I mean? And then we kill the two people responsible trying to kill us 150 men. Do you know what I mean? Kill the two people telling you to go over the trenches. They don't do that though, because you're all conditioned and trained to follow a suit and a uniform. Even though that suit and uniform, there's a Masonic apron underneath that. Yeah, so they don't care, and also they're like killing you for their go-to god anyway. Do you know what I mean? The more people they can sacrifice, I'm not going to sacrifice these 150 men in the trench for you, my god, Lucifer, in the name of the Masonic order. You know what I mean? But anyway, when they get you killed and then they take your houses off you and all the rest of it, they're left, these people, with a knack of surviving wars because they have a, look up Masonic battlefield signs, yeah, and you'll see they have signs on the battlefield to protect themselves. They put a sign on their bunkers, yeah, so they don't get bombed or attacked or raided by other people who can see that sign. You know what I mean? You can't see it because you're not initiated into the club. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's another story. I've done this in my videos anyway. Right, so hopefully you've read that. In 1277, when he bought land in East Wich, presumably out of the profits of his illegal career, his arms appeared on the 5th century font, which still survives at East Winch, Girls, Ben, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But this is the point of it, yeah? You can look all this up yourself anyway, but this is where it all go. Look, common pleas, and was knighted. He was died in 1308 with the family firmly well established. You see what I mean? And once they're well established, that is it. And this is what all these other wars were to do as well. Like I said, it's all a game of war, a Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? Families protecting each one. An illegitimate descendant of Richard, Earl of Cornwall, the younger son, see, as lords, dukes, and earls. And that's all you're always fighting for, these rich families, yeah? And we're always fighting against ourselves to keep these people in power, which is amazing, really. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you will fight for you, and you can keep us in slavery. Anyway, but there you go. That's, you can read that yourself. He was made a knight baronet, an admiral of the North Seas in 1335, you see. So, look, thus starting the family tradition of naval warfare, which 2.5 centuries later culminated in the defeat of the Spanish Armada by Lord Howard of Effingham. He was Sheriff of Norfolk, 1345. Now, the sheriff, remember, sheriffs are bailiffs, okay? Now, in a minute, I'm going to show you the heraldry of bailiffs, okay? And again, this is all what it comes, and I'm going to show you the ones for the police, the school, and everything else, because this is what you're dealing with. Like I said, you've got to research this. I'm just giving you the basic, the basics of it, like these flowers here, for instance, yeah, that represents the forget-me-not, what they used in Germany, yeah. They told you, they'll tell you it was in support of their brothers that were getting exterminated during the war, which is a total load of shit. It was actually a flower that said, if you get me or you invade me, remember I'm on your side and I'm playing the game. Do you know what I mean? But I'm on your side, leave my family alone, because we've put, and I'll show you the contracts they write up, by the way, in a minute. We've signed a contract that we will back you and be part of your family that is against the other families. Do you see what I mean? And that's what the forget-me-not was about. But that's another story, But notice there's always threes. There's a lot of 3 lions, 3 forget-me-nots. Do you see what I mean? 3 and 3 here. Look, 6, 6. But even because the different positions, look, you see, 3 have gone long way. These are oh bloody hell! These are triple tall crossers, yeah. But look at the different way they're positioned. One's a down pyramid and one's like a straight line. Straight line. I'll just put it that way. But remember, each one of these is a square, and I can go more into it if I want to. But blah blah blah. But that's another story, yeah. But you've got 3 cubes there and 3 cubes there. If I got into it, yeah. But yeah. Just leave it like that for now. But again, it's all to do with the heraldry, and you can see here, where they marry into things. And he was this is the thing. He was made a knight, baronet, and an admiral of the North Sea. Do you see what I mean? Because they run the land, L, the air, and the water. Yeah, land, air, water, LAW, law. It's their law that runs and rules over you, which I'm going to show you again in a minute, okay? Here we go. What do you think this is? Look, this is the this is what I'm on about, yeah? I was talking about, they had the animals, yeah? Like they have a lot of, like lions, unicorns, boars, and all of that. Then you've got the other people that are below them. Yeah, remember it goes up. Like say the top of the pyramids. Yeah, is your lions and your phoenixes and all your exotic dragons and things like that. Yeah, and as you come down that pyramid, yeah, you then get to the vegetables. Yeah, what are higher and above you. You know what I mean? That's the thing about it. You lot are the insects, the profane, you're nothing. Do you know what I mean? That's how they look on you. But anyway, you've got these vegetables that work and, look amongst you, and look like you and live amongst you, but they're there keeping an eye on you and spying on you. But this is what it is, look, you see, look. But again, notice there's all three, look, there's always three, look, you see, bulrushes, three bulrushes, look. I don't know what a fruit does. It look like peas or something there. Fructed. And then you got the fleur de pis, look, and in the fleur de pis you've got the three, and then you got the three red things here, look. Again, different structures. Do you know what I mean? But that's what it's about. But that's the heraldry of it, yeah. And like I said, yeah, let's read it. Look. The vegetable kingdom, like the animal kingdom, see, has been largely drawn upon the for coats of arms, and some familiar instances are given on this page, together with the actual coats of arms on which plants devices are used. Some of the charges represented wildflowers, other garden flowers, and orchard produce, while others show the cereals, common weeds of the field, vegetables, and so on. You see, so as your more importance go up the scale, yeah, the more obviously the more exotic it is, So yeah, that's what that is, and this is the things that we don't understand. They learn that, yeah. Now here again, look, these are the as you go up higher, look, you see, look, you got the stags, the lions, the bears. Again, they're calling them different names to what I would call them. But I suppose like that one there, it's a peasant. That's more like a hyena, but it's more like a hyena with a leopard, and I don't know what sort of clawed feet he's got. But as you can see, this is the sheep are they're ambulant, But again, this is what I'm saying. These are the different, the different things they use in heraldry, and more importance as you go up the ranks. Yeah, you get assigned a different animal. Like this heraldry here. Like you see, I suppose that's called a rock. Is it a rock? I think, yeah. And then here you've got the unicorn. But again, look at the flags it's holding. That's Scotland, obviously, yeah. And England is in the background there, I believe. But don't quote me on that. Then the bull, he's got fleur de pis on his flag and three dragons on each side, yeah. Fleur de pis. Plus you've got the three stripes. And he's also got the feather there, look, you see, which combine other families. You see what I mean? So maybe, possibly, and don't quote me on this, is 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 families there represented. I don't know, you see. And then you've got the dragon, and that's represented by 2 families. I don't know, but they would get represented by the bull, maybe. I don't know. You know what I mean? But these are all working together in cahoots. Do you know what I mean? And you got the drawbridge on this one. Look, the drawbridge on, and is it a goat? I believe it's a goat, isn't it? With coins on it, maybe. I don't know, but they all signed a petition to keep themselves and honour themselves and look after each other. Heraldy in Norfolk churches, okay? So now the heraldy in Norfolk church, these are the knights, look, you see? Notice the heraldy on the top there, look, and then you got a skeleton on the right, look, you see? More heraldy on below the skeleton, look, okay? Heraldy there, and then a different heraldy below the lady, okay? So they're the ones that are looking after this, yeah? So again, it's all in ownership. I don't know if there's an hourglass surrounded by angel wings there, is it? I don't know. Same as on this side. But that's the heraldry that's looking after, again, the knights or whatever, the importance of the people that are Freemasons. Do you think do you think a profane person would be involved in this? And again, heraldry in Norfolk churches, okay? Hechen and the Rising Deanery, but again, can you see it? Look, it's circles, yeah, right? It's always circles, and it's rows of 3. Look, 3, 6, 9, the Masonic 9, which you know is the 9 steps in Freemasonry. We wouldn't go into that though. But again, remember the 9 steps make the Swazi, and that's what it's about. And it's 2, 3, 2, blah, blah, blah. But as you can see in the heraldry in the windows, you know, you got the Masonic blue lodge floor there. Look, there's more families in each shield, and each family looks after the other families within that county, within that state, or whatever. Yeah, same as this one. Look, Norfolk Churches. This is Holt Deanery. Yeah, again, look, you got the major. You got the animals. You got the crown above the shield. Do you know what I mean? Then you got 2 little families above the heads of the, I don't know, lions or whatever they are, and they both got by the. Oh no, there's 4 families there. Look, in the little corners, and each corner there's 4 little families that looks out of the one in the middle, you see, and then you got the top one at the top. Yeah, but that's what you're dealing with. These different heraldies are these different people. Again, this one here, look, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, possibly 9, 10 families there. Again, it's a triple tall cross, look, yeah, but he's got these other families on the side banner here that looks after him. And like I said, it's a call to arms, you know, come and help us. As you can see in this church here, look, and this, I've took many pictures like this, yeah, you can see the heraldry, you know, again, it's the unicorn and the lion, so definitely someone very important. It's got GR2 and then GR whatever with the crown, you know, above. I don't know what that dude is. There's a little red something there sitting on a crown. Look, so there's a crown, and then he's sitting on the crown. Presumably he rules that, and then there's someone above him. But you can see the Union Jack sitting within the pyramid. Look. Do you see what I mean? I don't know much about it. I wish I did. I could, you know, reel it off, and I don't know. You know what I mean? I can't say, you know. But this is in your churches, okay? So again, the heraldry. So again, it's the. So we've had the town halls. We've had the churches, okay? All right. We know it's lords, dukes, and earls, and you know, blah blah blah, and they're the ones controlling everything. Again, look, more animals. Look within the shield. Look, this looks like a what is that? Maybe a bear. Is that a bear chained up? And then we've got a dragon that seems to be sort of slain. He has a spear through him, or he's broken a spear off. Yeah, it looked like a spear, but it's a blue dragon. Look, and I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's headless, but it's James, Summers, Thomas, Bearspot, Cannon. See, so is the cannons, Lords, Dukes, and Earls. They just don't come out anymore. Of Lichfield, right? You've got the Lichfield Arms here. You've got Lichfield Road. You see what I mean? Founded Scholarship, St John's, whatever, Cambridge, something, whatever. But again, it's in church. It's in a church, and the heraldry's there again. The Scottish, here we go, ecclesiastical heraldry, religious houses, universities, and moderators, you see, because they run your universities and all your schools, which I'll show you again in a minute. And again, you can see the heraldry, and I don't need to go too far into it because it's there in obviously on the edge of the book, you know what I mean? But again, look, they all the religious universities and everything, they control it all. Again, look, the deans of Scotland, you see. And again, you can see the heraldry of what controls the schools. And Scotland, again, just because they call themselves lairds, they're lords, dukes, and earls, and they're the landowners. The lairds are the landowners. And again, that all goes by that family again, you see. Again, like in Game of Thrones, you know, you've got people who run the sea, you've got the ones who runs the islands, you see what I mean? And it's what we're dealing with today. The same people that will never come out of power ever, because they think they got rights and entitlement by God, you know. Now here's the American heraldry. Yeah, they've moved from here and then gone to America, and these are played the, you know, done all, you know, started the wars, civil or whatever, and got, you know, and made it so they've had them positions of power. You know, they just throw up like the, you know, the rebel flag, you know, the cross rebel flag against the Union. You know, they go, we're the Union and you're the whatever, and we'll just play out this big war, kill all the profane people. You know what I mean? Take the houses, the land, and the property, and that's it. You know what I mean? That's what they've been doing for centuries and decades. They get the gold, the oil, and whatever else, and anyone who stands in the way, they'll poison them. You know, just look at that film that Robert De Niro just did. You know, where the Freemasons killed all the Indian women, married them, killed them, just to get the wealth and the land and the oil, and that's what they've done for centuries. Now, you find a gold mine today. First thing they're going to do is look for an in on you. Yeah, they're going to look over a way to get you, and it don't matter how long it takes. They're going to sneak their way in either by marriage, yeah, or you leave the will to them when you're old. They do anything they can to get hold of your fucking money. Do you know what I mean? That's what they're all about, these Freemasons. But anyway, there you go. Look, Thomas More Centre, Yale. Look, Baltimore, Fredericksburg. But as you can see, again, look, you've got the main family right in the middle, look, and then the little gang that protect him. Again, it's 3 shields to the left, 3 shields to the right, and 6 on the bottom. Yeah, because it's always 3s, 6s, 9s, blah blah blah. But that's what it is in America, look, you see. So there's nothing changed. It doesn't matter where you go across the world. These people are in your towns and cities, and they're the ones you've got to eradicate out of your towns and cities. Yeah. Again, here we go. Look, the moral of schools in England, yeah? So that's your England Heraldy, and the people that run your schools. And again, it's that guild, yeah? You've got guilds of teachers, yeah? And they're groomed how to be teachers and what to teach and whatever. And they make sure their people are put in places of powers like headmasters and all that. And then they separate you. They go, you're going into 2D, you're going into 3D, you're going into 4D. You know what I mean? And that's all it is. They group people into certain classes, whether they're hypnotising them or doing something, you know, sinister to them. We don't know, do you? You know what I mean? Because they go and that's it. You don't get access to it, and you certainly won't be allowed to check in it. But if you look, I can just, how do I do this? Yeah, like that. But if you look, see, look, Sherborne School, Royal. See the square within the square, look. See the square within the square. You got Jack and Boaz columns, and there's the heraldry right in the middle of it. Look, again, it's animals. Is that like a griffin or something? I don't know. Standing on pedo swells, and then you got this guy here, whoever this is. But again, you'll see the lion at the top, look, standing on the crown, and a Knights Templar mask underneath the crown. Look, you see. You see what I mean? And this is the thing what you're dealing with all the time. There's another school here, look, you see? See the fleur de pistol in the middle of between the 2 red circles on the shield. But that's all heraldry, look. That's Orando Laborando, whatever that means, I do not know. But these are schools, you see. So who do you think's running the schools? Knights Templars, yeah? Freemasons. They just hide their Masonic aprons. The arms of public schools of England, look. So these are the schools of England. Yeah, look. See the 3 circles in the second one? Makes a square. All of these. Now, there it is, look. Oh, ain't there quite yet. Oh, not yet. I thought that was the one. Oh, my profane friends. But these are the different schools, look. So these schools, are they part of a family of Knights Templars? Or are they just fluky and put these on the school because it's just the shields? Now, you can look at it any way you want, yeah? You've got it on football teams. You've got it on the Cub Scouts. You've got it on scooter gangs. You've got it, you know, all these same similar markings on everything that goes on today. You've got this heraldry. Look, montage of traditional British school emblems, look. See it, look? Now, is that anything to do with Knights Templars or families? I don't know. You tell me. And these families are running your schools on the education they deem fit. Because if you go against it, they'll shut you down, like I said. You know what I mean? You cannot go against these people. What they say, what they want is up to them. While they're learning all this heraldry, you know, the signs and the symbols of Freemasonry and how to keep together, you know, because everyone's on the level within the lodge, yeah. And like I said, they recruit these other people. They have no clue of what's going on at all, yeah. And all they are is a ring of protection. And when they stand there going, that don't go on in my lodge, they're talking the truth. It doesn't go on in your lodge because you're not fucking part of that circle where they do the satanic ritual abuse and everything else that gives these people that special power over each other. You know what I mean? And that's why everything's shushed up. Look, all these school emblems, look. See what I mean? You can't beat it, baby. This is what you're dealing with. And I'm not talking about one family, too. I'm talking about thousands of families living within your towns and cities, hundreds of them. Special families that have been there for centuries and decades with funny handshakes that come from battlefields. When you help us on this battlefield, we'll give you this house, this land, this entitlement, but don't tell anyone else. Do you know what I mean? But they'll fight for you, get them rallied up and we'll make sure you get paid well, but every other fucking idiot is, you know what I mean? And that's what they're doing all the time to us. You know what I mean? Crazy. I've shown you in my videos how they do, funny handshake deals on, the Battle of Bannockburn and all of that lot. You know what I mean? It goes all the way back. William Wallace was fighting these people. The same person, was fighting these, and who let him down? The lairds, for their land and property. The king gave them land, entitlement, and property, and that's why he got betrayed. You know what I mean? By the Freemasons. It's always the same. Look at Joan of Arc, surrounded by Freemasons. Rallied up the army, done her job, did what she would do. Then they betrayed her and burnt her at the stake. The religious faction, of course, she was a heretic or whatever. So, but it's Freemason manipulation because they run it. It's all there, in the heraldy. You see what I mean? It don't matter what it is. Again, look, coat of arms for schools and colleges, look, arms of school. So who are these knights and all these families? Yeah, you see what I mean? Look, these are knights. You see what I mean? So they're running your schools, you see what I mean? And the education system, and you wonder why people are protesting, why our kids are in such a bad state, because these people are making it that way. Because while you're all fighting chaotically amongst yourself, you're not thinking about who's ruling or controlling your town or your city. Your world, is your town and your city. You know what I mean? Not the whole bloody world. You can't do nothing about it. You know what I mean? But you can clean up your own towns and your own cities. Once you find out who's responsible, for all the chaos. Again, look, badge and caps of British public schools. Look, if I go in closer, look, what have these got to do with Knights Templars? Look, you see it? Look, see, it's all to do with them, their families, their heritage, their mottos. Oh, baby. You know what I mean? Look, it's all Knights Templars. Nothing to do with anything. It's all to do with knights. Them same families over and over and over again in your towns, in your cities. Look, arms of public schools. Look, again, see the Knights Templar crosses. Look, see, you can't get it. Look, see, it's all Knights Templars from Freemason lodges. See, they can't help themselves. Their system has been going on for decades and centuries. Universities of Great Britain, Ireland, and the colonies. So you imagine that. You see what I mean? You got London, look, Aberystwyth, Bristol. Been followed there by the gang stalking, drug dealing, pervert Freemasons. Anyway, that's another story. Look, Sydney, look. Dublin, Ireland, Holborn, Birmingham, Bangor, Durham. You know what I mean? These are all Masonic places, all run by different Masonic armies and gangs. Glasgow, look at St Andrews, look. Now he's supposed to be upside down, remember that? The St Andrews cross, but why is he up vertical? Because that's the way Jesus was fucking crucified, exactly like that, with the two ruffians that gave you the 3 X's, XXX, which represented 666, if you go watch my videos. But anyway, what do I know? Again, more British emblems. Look, see, I might have shown this picture before. If I did, I'm sorry and I apologise. It's all heraldy, yeah, all Masonic heraldy that controls our towns and our cities, yeah. Look at the heraldy, look, more. Arms of schools. These are the different families, yeah? Now we'll go into the magistrate courts. I'm sure that's something to do with the Knights Templar and the Masons. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. Again, the unicorn, the lion, look, wearing the crowns. You see the Knights Templar. Look, there's the Knights, hat, and then on top of that, it has the crown. Look, and then on top of the crown, we have the lion. So the important thing here is the lion, the family lion, the lion family, whoever that may be. And if you notice on the crown, look, you have the Knights Templar cross and the fleur de pis, what come from France. Then you got the three lions, look, you got the harp, and yeah, and the motto. But that's your magistrates' courts. So here's another Bradford Magistrates' Court. Again, right? Why are Knights Templars from Freemason lodges running our courts? Yeah, Royal Arms outside Westminster Magistrates' Court. See, so who's running it? The Freemasons, of course. Always, they run everything. You know? The Magistrates' Court, Manchester, look, you see? It's Knights Templars, Magistrates Association, you see? This will be top of the league here, look, you see? Where they got the scales of justice. Then I believe that's a crown there, look, yeah? With the sun with the sun Ra hieroglyph, obviously as a sword. Then you've got the Knights Templar hat or helmet, yeah, sitting on the shield. And then you've got the fleur de pis, as you can see. And then you've got the certain crosses, what are sitting and embedded in something. And then you've got the staff or the wand they use to hocus pocus people from the Masonic Lodge. Again, look, Chester Magistrate Court. Why would they have heraldy? Shields within, and then you got the knight, you know, again it's the unicorn and the lion and all of that, you know what I mean? Plymouth Magistrates Court, look, see? Again, I don't know what they're supposed to be actually. Are they two lions? Would you say they were two lions? I don't know. But whatever it is, you've got your four castles, look. But it's four square because you square the castles off, you end up with four square. Yeah? That's what it's about. The four square. Look, I'll just show you quickly. You know, I like to brag. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. That'll do. So if I square off the castles, because I square, oh, that's too big. Like this. Ooh. Alright, so if I square the castles off, look, you see, that's squared off, and then they'll go like that. Can you remember the sign I showed you at the beginning? See, it's four squares. Oh, that one's a bit rough. Actually, if I thin it off a bit, thin it up a bit more, that'll do. Now, if I follow that through, look, that's better. See, I get four square. You see, that's what that is. It's four square, 666 of Lucifer. Yeah, those who don't know my video, I'll just give you an idea. But you've got one square and calm piss there, look, you see. Then you've got two square and calm piss there. Yeah. And then you've got the same on the other side. If we get the other side, I'll do it in this colour. Then we've got a square and calm piss there. And then we've got a square and calm piss here. You see? So it's four square, you see? And that represents 666. And on the points, it's 13 points. You see what I mean? Of Freemasonry, the steps in Freemasonry. You have to go watch my videos. So, because we're not doing that today. We're doing the heraldy. Those who know my videos know exactly what I'm on about. But that's the 13 points and the four square, you see? And even at the top of there, look, I believe he's holding an anchor. Look up Masonic anchor. Look, he's holding the anchor. I don't know what that's supposed to be. Is that a crown? So again, for the sea, because we know when we go into court, we're dealing with in the dock to do with the seas, and the berth, as you go into the berth and all that sort of stuff. I can't remember it off by heart, but yeah, but that's what it's about anyway. And again, look, we've got custom house, yeah, right? So you wonder why the drugs getting into your country? Ask the Freemasons running the customs officers, you know what I mean? Custom officers and the custom house, why the CIA, FBI, all the, you know, MI5, police, you know, all of them, yeah, all got top ranking Masonic families that go back decades and centuries that are lords, dukes and earls. You know what I mean? Because that's what you're dealing with. And then you wonder why you got drugs within your community running rife. And there's not been one march when all the kids that have been killed by drugs, not one fucking march, not nothing. There's no campaign, nothing coming across the telly or anything else. Come on, because they're the ones running it and they know exactly what they're doing. Yeah, Crown Court, look at that for the Crown Court. You know what I mean, my profane friends? And there's more likely discrepancy. We don't even see about it. But again, can you see the heraldry of it all? See, that is 4 square again. See? And you got 4 circles there, and then you got your 4 pyramids. I don't know if you can see it. You know, you got the squares within the squares. You know what I mean? But, you know, again, I ain't going to get into that. People who do my videos will know what I'm on about when I say that is, again, you got the squares within the squares, yeah? And then you got the circles, look. Bum, 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 blah, blah, blah. And the pedo swells, blah, blah, blah. Again, there's your heraldry there, look. Again, look. You see? Always the unicorn, always the lion. You know what I mean? Always the same. You know, who are these people that we don't see that hide their Masonic apron? Another courthouse, look. Notice the circles, look. See the circle within the pyramid, look. See? Oh, baby. You know what I mean? Royal Coat of Arms, Court, High Court, Crown Court, look. So you can see the circle within the pyramid, and you got the heraldry, and again here's another heraldry, look. London Crown Court, look. Another heraldry, look. Another shield, another Knights Templar looking after the Crown Court, because they only got to let their own people in. And obviously you can see the, you know, the red and white Knights Templar cross. So there you go, you know what I mean? And here it is, look, the next one I'm going to show you, but I just want to show you this. See the pyramid, and then that there is your keystone, look, you see? Going into the Crown Court, my profane friends. This here is Acacia, look, the green Acacia, which is the Roman wreath they stick on the Roman, you know, the emperor, or whatever his name is, Caesar, yeah. They stick that on, the Acacia on his head. And then you got the shield and the crown. And if you notice, the crown is a castle. You see what I mean? And their castles are their Masonic lodges. They just changed them today. Now here's you know, I've got loads here. Look, Turnbull Clan Association. See, because it's all to do with clans and tribes, yeah, that were round the heart of the fire. You see, the certain families, yeah. And anyone who stood out of line or stepped out of line, they bashed and killed, yeah? Like they were the witchfinder generals, for instance, yeah? If a woman wouldn't sleep with them, and they slaughtered many for this, they'd kill them, you know what I mean? Or threatened them or blackmailed them. You know, you imagine that, you know, and like I said, during the war, they're the ones that were shooting the brave people going, no, I'm not going to go over the fucking trench, even though they're shitting themselves, when you can understand that. But they shot him. You know what I mean? They're the Freemasons that were there as captains. They were just hiding their Masonic aprons. You know, they deemed everything. They sit in the courts now, deeming who should be sentenced and who didn't. They're not. You know what I mean? They got their own internal courts where they deal with their people that step out of line. But they go to our courts, they get away with it with one funny handshake, and a wink and a nod, and they got away with it. But this is what it's about. Look, the Turnbull Clan Association, yeah. But this is what you're dealing with, yeah. And I'll show you in a minute. Look, to all and sundry who these presents do or may concern. So whoever they, you know, Lucifer Powell. But what it is, you see, them stamps and seals, yeah, are all to do with what they sign, the family, yeah, look, the family heraldry, look, extracts of matriculation of the arms of the minister, yeah, and Kirk session of Crown Court, Church of Scotland in the city of Westminster. So think about that, okay? And then, you know, you can look this all up yourself. Look, the Reverend John Miller Scott, Master of Arts and Bachelor of Divinity in the University of Glasgow, Fellow of Society of Antiquities of Scotland, Minister William Morgan, let's not forget William Morgan, who got killed by the Freemasons, Sessions Clerk, the Right Honourable Nail. See, they're all honourable. Look, Lord Drumlin, Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, one of Her Majesty's Most Honourable Priory Council, see, because they're all councillors and blah, blah, blah. Sir Alex Giles, Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, Companion of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, Sir William Slimmings, Knight Commander, or the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, Doctor of Letters and others. The Kirk Session of Crown Court, Church of Scotland in the city of Westminster, having by petition unto the Lord Leon, King of Arms, on the date of 18th of July, 19say, shown that the said the Kirk Session, I think, and the Crown Court, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But this is what it's all about. You need to look it up. You know, Crown Court, Church of Scotland, blah, 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 all of that bollocks, and then they get their seal, and there's the seal. But this is what they do, and they sign it, and their families, are all signing themselves away to show their solidarity and their oneness to keep the profane where they belong, in the peasantry. To all and sundry, let whom these presented do or may concern, and again it goes through and they sign it, and again you can see it's different heraldry of a different family, and they sign it all. Look, see, the city of Dunfermline, again, look, to all and sundry whom these presents do or may concern, and you can read it all, it's all there, you know what I mean? And like I said, it's different heraldry, a different family, do you know what I mean? And this is what these are, all of it, it don't matter where you are, where you go, this is what you're dealing with, these families, and these chapters. Look, see, all these shields, look, you see, they protect this one family here, for instance. See, you got this family here, and each one of these families here, these 6 families, look after this one family, and they call to arms. Do you bow down to our allegiance? Do you the vows you've said in the Masonic Lodge? Do you keep to them vows? Do you know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. And so may concern, and there's that family. Look, whoever that is, Malcolm Cleveland and Minnie McKinney, Angus McInnes, and there it is, look, you see? And they're the different families that, again, signed to the loyalty that keeps us, the profane, out of their fucking system, do you know what I mean? And again, you got the other one, the cross keys of the treasurer, you know what I mean? Securitas et vigilantia, which means, we'll give you security and we're going to be vigilant as much as we can and make sure the profane people never rise up. To all and singular, see? No, I can't read it because it's all out of whack. But these are the things they sell. See, again, look, you got the Arcacia of Rome, and it's Freemasonry symbolism. Then you got the cross keys of symbolism of Freemasonry. See, this is what you're dealing with. They just hide all of this heraldry behind their Masonic aprons, and then their Masonic aprons hide behind suits and uniforms that they change and flip at will and whim to control us, regardless of what that situation is. Like this, for instance, someone come round in a suit and go, oh, to you. And if you believe that suit, then that's done its job. If it doesn't work, they then send someone round with a Masonic apron under a police uniform and try the same thing. And then you're more than likely bend to a policeman uniform because you're supposed to trust that person. Do you see what I mean? If that don't work, they'll send someone round with a Masonic apron on, wearing a white coat, and he might convince you. You know what I mean? But the thing is, each and everything they're sending around to you is just a Freemason doing the job that's on an agenda for these families. Do you see what I mean? But they'll wear different uniforms, like a police uniform, a school uniform, a nurse's uniform, a fire brigade, a Royal Norfolk lifeboat, all of that, you know, they'll come around as a cub master, a scoutmaster, regardless of what it is. They wear these uniforms to manipulate you because you have been brought up in school to trust these uniforms and obey these uniforms, even though there's a complete fucking idiot residing within that uniform, wearing a Masonic apron, who ain't fit for purpose or anything else. But there you go. There's the crown again, look. You know, and again, to all in singular. And all of these different people, these families, yeah, that's the main one, have all got these smaller families looking after them. You see what I mean? This is my allegiance to these families. And when war breaks out or anything else, I'm the god, I'm the king, and these three families will come and thingy. And that's what it's all about. So all of a sudden, and there is the heraldry of it all, you see. And you can go on and on and on. See, this is a special one, look, because he's got, apart from having the family crest like that, he's also got the flag here, look. And you can see it's Masonic. I think this is the police one, maybe. So all and sundry. I think this might be the police one, but I'll show you that in a minute. But again, you can see, look, the different badges or the heraldry and the different families that are looking after this person, you know. But it looks like he's a little bit special. See, he's got the one there. Look, I think this is a police one, I think, by the look of it. Again, you can see the blue and white checkered floor. And you got one down here as well, look, which is another bit special. You can see the square, look. You can see the moon, which is used a lot in Shriners. See, got the Shriners, like the square and the Shriner moon, look, you see. And this one's got cats, look, 2 cats on the left. It's got 2 bells. You see, each heraldry has a different sign or symbol, you know. But these are the things they sign to say, yeah, our allegiance to your family, and we're going to look after you. Soon as if the peasants rise, we're going to come and help you, and we're going to put them down. You know what I mean? And this is why they win all the wars. Because like I said, they'll wear a uniform exactly what you're wearing, but they're on a different agenda, and they're going to make sure you fail, get shot in war, you know, whatever. And they're going to shoot you in the back and put you down as a casualty of war. You know what I mean? When you think you're serving beside a brother, you're not beside a brother, you're beside a Masonic freakmason that is going to do you harm, stuff you and stitch you up so they can take your land or property. Again, it's just the same old, you see what I mean? Look, to all and sunder. You know what I mean? The grant of arms, yeah, they get granted. See, look. Roger Alexander Lindsay, a baron of Craig Hall, you see, because again, it's barons, lords, dukes, and earls, and all the same fucking thing. You know what I mean? Actually, I just took a picture of that. See, Roger, Baron Craig. See, it's all lords, dukes, and earls. I don't know what that one is, but again, you can see the families, look, yeah. This is the University of St Andrew, you see. That's the shield. These are the families. And again, you can see it's in the configuration of the square and calm piss with the X's. But that's what you're dealing with across the world. These families that have rights and privileges above you. Again, this one has like a unicorn at the top, look. But that's what you're dealing with all the time with these people. It's just absolutely disgraceful. Look, the court of Lord Lyon. Yeah, the court. The shorthand of heraldry, Lindsay Cargo, British coronets. See, the British coronets of rank go under. See, the coronets. See, there's coronets. All of that thing you can think of. The coronets, I think, blow a boogle, don't they? But that's the different things you're dealing with. All these different coats of arms. These are all guilds, yeah, and different things and specialities, what they do to look after each other. And this one, you can see, look, the Masonic bee, look, 3 of them. The justice scales, and again the Knights Templar, you know, he's wearing the crown on his head, look, which has the 3 leaves, maybe the fleur de pis. Then you got the old special Cub Scout symbol there, and a different one for this side, and I can't remember what they are off the heart. But again, you've got 2 different dragons, or you know, a lion type, winged lion maybe, and this one's a dragon or a phoenix again. But notice he wears the crown on around his neck by the look of things. Look, but again, that'll represent something, of his, I don't know, because I'm not even going to speculate on it. But that's what you're dealing with, these people all the time. See, he's got a white flute whistle, and he's got another flute. This is the police. Look, yeah, man. Look, yeah, this is what's going on. Yeah, so we've got all of that. Well, I've shown you all that heraldry, and they're signing their families away and all the rest of it. Blah blah blah. Now look, armed crest of Police Federation of England and Wales. Yeah. So again, look, we've got the Masonic B. So that was, so that's the Police Federation. Again, what are the Knights Templars to do with the Police Federation? You know what I mean? See, this is the police superintendents. So all your police superintendents are Knights Templars, Grand Masters, and all the rest of it. Look, see, look, even the lion has the hat band round his neck. He's got a blue tongue and a red whistle, blue lodge, red lodge whistle. And again, the same thing here with this dragon. Look, he has a blue tongue, he has blue nails, and a gold whistle. But again, you can see the checkered board floor, and there's two Moloch owls, and the owls are holding the scales. Look, you see, the scales of justice that you'll never see if you're profane. And the duck, the Masonic duck, or is it a Masonic seagull, has a truncheon and a set of handcuffs. Look, you see. But again, what are they? Knights Templars. You see? See what I mean? Arms crest of the police, you see. So that's why you're never getting past these people, because they're Knights Templar. Their families go back centuries and decades, like I said, to the 1500s, 1400s. Coats of arms of West Yorkshire Police, you see. And he's got a chain round his neck, look. So he's in honour to something else, maybe. I don't know. And you got the three flowers. Sorry, it's late here. And again, look, West Yorkshire Police Station. See the heraldry, look, the Knights Templar cross at the top of the crown. And below that would be the Knights Templar cross, the flag. And then you've got, again, the Knights Templar cross. You've got fleur de pis on the right, fleur de pis on the left. And then you've got diamonds and circles, look. See what I mean? It's crazy. Their symbolism knows no bounds, baby. Again, look. West Riding of Yorkshire coat of arms. Look. See? That's who runs that town and city or that country. See, look. The lion, the unicorn, and then you got the lion at the top of the crown, look. And then you got the Knights Templar underneath, but it's in green. Remember, the colours represent stuff as well. But I don't know what, sorry. Again, these are all police heraldry, Knights Templars, look. See? Because like I said, it's all special guilds, So, you've got special families that'll just do the police, yeah? They'll bring and groom up their children to be police officers and step into positions of power, yeah? Where the profane person would never ever get that position. Their Knights Templars are always in positions like superintendents and, all them top, everything, it don't matter, like the MPs, they're all groomed for positions of power. And if you ain't, rowing that boat along with these people that run these crowns, yeah, you ain't getting anywhere. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be family. Look, the Met coat of arms, the Metropolitan Police. What have they got to do with the Masonic Knights Templars, you see? And the heraldry, look, you see? Crazy, the Met Police, but we know that anyway, don't we? We know they're corrupt. See? The Metropolitan Police, corrupt. They got the 3 hours, look. 3 hours, Sheffield hours and all of that. Can't remember what the saying is now in Freemasonry. Forward, Velocia Securitas, the Force Crest, British Transport Police, you see. Now, again, you'd have families that just look after the transport, the trains, you've got families that look after the trains, yeah. You've got families that look after the buses, you've got families that look after the taxis, yeah. And each generation is groomed into them positions of power but they're all Knights Templars, Grand Masters within the Masonic Lodge. I mean, again, here we go. Look, Devon and Cornwall Police Federation. Again, the Knights Templars. I think that's the one we've already done. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, he's got the crown round his neck. Look, yeah. I think we might have already done this one. But, oh yeah, what's the top of there? Look? Well, I don't know what the top of that staff is or what's on top of that staff. But again, that represents a family. And you've got the two flags, look, again. But it's all different families, you sneaky little buggers, you know what I mean? Again, police superintendents, I think I've done that one. Like I said, some of these might have been doubles. Again, these are retired police officers, yeah? But again, just because someone's retired doesn't mean they're not sitting there as a sleeper agent working against you, the profane, yeah? And again, you got the scary monster with the wings that have got the Masonic tile floor, you know. And again, there's a lot of blue and red in there, you see. But it all represents something. They know what it means. And just because it says retired doesn't mean. Now we're going into the schools, the Royal School of Church Music, okay? So who's running our churches again? The church music. Look at the ducks. Look, three Masonic ducks on one side, another 3 Masonic ducks on the other side. You know what I mean? 33 degree with the Masonic harp in the middle, and I suppose that's the sacred law book of Freemasonry in the middle there, between the sun and the moon, I presume. But again, here's the police. Look at this. Look, Surrey Police Service. Yeah, the Governor General of Canada. This Canada. You got the all-seeing eye. Look. You got the Masonic floor. It's just madness. And then you got your 6 stars, one in the down pyramid, one in the long pyramid. But look, and it's Masonic. Look, respect, integrity, and honor for the brotherhood. You know what I mean? It's the police. Look, you see. Look, to whom acquiesces, which means to all it may concern. And again, they've signed. Look, you see it? Look, the signatures at the bottom. Look, you see? They signed their direct rate, and you can see their flag. Look, you see? You see their shield, the Heraldy shield. And again, it's surrounded, if you look, by the Roman crown. Yeah, and on top you've got the king's, the king's crown on top of that. But that's, again, Masonic symbolism, look. But they've signed it again, look, that our family, and you've got these 2 families here, look, yeah, that protect this family here. But again, they're all police, they'll all be groomed, that'll be the same people, the same families over and over again, controlling this family and this police force, yeah. This man here, look, he's well groomed, yeah. Look, he's got 3 pips and a crown above, look. And he's got the heraldy on his shoulder here, look, you see, which is in a down pyramid. And there's the all-seeing eye and their integrity and respect and that. But I bet you the corruption knows no bounds in there, no bounds. Yeah, Hampshire, look, more, again, heraldy, look, within the circle, Hampshire Constabulary, red and blue. See, red and blue lodge. See, red lodge, blue lodge. Then you've got the Arcacia on the left, Arcacia on the right, see? Arcacia. And then you've got the silly little Masonic flower again, yeah? We won't get into that. Then you've got the crown, obviously, which represents, but it's all, again, what is that got to do? The Isle of Wight, look, you see? Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, heraldy, again, from Freemasonry. The police, look, you see? Their heraldy and their shield. Hindu police. You see the 2 squares in there? And then within the 2 squares, look, you've got the 2 circles. And then you've got the 3 feathers, which is the fleur de pis. You know what I mean? There he is, look. Freemason, look. See? He wears the colour of Freemasonry. He's got the badge, look, above his head. You look above his head, what is it? It's a heraldy. He's a Knights Templar. See? Only Knights Templar can get into the force. Now we're talking about, look, UK police and prison caps. So who run the prisons? Now, if you've seen my prison videos, where the square and calm pisses all over the rails and all outside the prison, the walls and the, the different, symbolism on the prison grounds and things like that, and the designs of it, you got to ask yourself, who's running our prisons? The Knights Templar, Freemasons, yeah? That's why you've got this sun hieroglyph going around the two squares, and you've got two circles in it, in the crown above, because it's all Masonic, look, you see? All Freemasonry, look. That's why you've got different colours, look, you see? Each and every one of them is Masonically to do with Knights Templar and their Freemason club. Do you know what I mean? Because they run it all. That's why you'll never see justice within anything, within any town or city, because they run it. Look, there's the Heraldy, look. You see? Leicestershire Police, there's a Heraldy shield, look, within the circle. You see? Crazy. Again, look, the police, the Heraldy, look, and that family that runs this police force. Because they don't want any profane people control. They want the best interest of what they're looking out for, their families, what they're blackmailed, the deals, the handshakes they do. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And all the drug running and the chaos they keep creating within every town and city, they want that to carry on. So they put their own people in positions of power, and when they say this or say that, the profane like us can't say nothing against it, because we're the ones that go to jail. We're the ones that get, find an accident or killed, accidentally on purpose and all of that. And then you get the policeman or the coroner who works for that system go, yeah, it was an accident. You know what I mean? Accidental death. And everyone swallows it because they wear the uniform and hide their Masonic apron behind that uniform. And because they got that power of authority with that uniform, everyone swallows it, whatever story they give. Look, West Midlands Police, look, the heraldry again of the Knights Templar. See the three square compasses in there, 6, 6, 6. But again, what can you say? You know what I mean? This heraldry, it's Knights Templars. Look, there it is. Look, on the side of the frigging police car. It's heraldry, Knights Templars. That's what you're dealing with all the time. Look, Police Federation. Look, see the Police Federation. See the bricks, look, the masonry. That's the emergency services, yeah? Look, the police coat of arms, yeah? That is the police coat of arms. The police coat of arms. Amazing, isn't it, eh? And notice that he has a devil's thingy on behind him, look. See the devil, look? You see? Oh, yeah, baby. You better believe they're up to no good but corruption. The emergency services, look, yeah? The emergency services, look. Again, Knights Templar, you notice the griffin, I'll call it a griffin, yeah? The top holds the golden key, look. And then you got the feathers, and then you got the Knights Templar hat, look, yeah? So I presume that's the crown, the feathers of the crown, he's wearing that, yeah? Because that's what this is the family we're dealing with. Then you've got, say, 3 griffins, golden, that are in the X, 3 X's, as you know, make 666, and I won't get into that. And then below that, look, we've got the 3 keeps, look, 5 keeps, yeah, of the castle, 5 castle keeps, do you know what I mean? But again, I don't know all. I wish I did. If I did, I'd grasp them right up. But again, it's showing you the emergency services are Knights Templars, blah, blah, blah. And like I said in my research, with ambulances, nurses and doctors, you can understand why they're all Grand Masters and working within the Masonic Lodge. Again, look, the heraldry on the shield. Again, the knight, look, but they each wear a different crown for each family, look. And there's your, again, look, if you look at the point within the circle, look, that was during the war, yeah? The point within the circle, look, red lodge, blue lodge, and white lodge, yeah? The red, the blue, and the white is the red lodge, the blue lodge, and the white lodge. And again, it's surrounded by Arcasia of the Roman god, you know what I mean? That's what it's all about, that's the heraldry of it. And this is the crest of arms for the RAF museum. See, now again, I'm going to put museums in, and you'll see that every museum has its own crest because it has Knights Templars that look after the history they want to tell us happened, yeah? So they own all the museums, same as they own all the schools, same as they own all the police stations, same as they own all the courts. You see, these Knights Templars. Oh yeah, you go again. It's a school in England, you see. They run the schools, you see. That's why that's above the school, on the school gates. Yeah, look, the Royal Charter, you see, of the Sherbonian Society, look, Sherborne Schools, Royal Charter, look. And again, that means something. I don't know what they're writing. I can't read it, sorry. Maybe someone else could read it or look it up themselves. But again, as you can see, look, it's the old funny, the old funniness of the old heraldy. You know what I mean? That's what you're dealing with. Heraldy, look, all the time. 3 golden griffins, look, you see. Knights Templar hat. And then above that, he's wearing a funny old crown. You know what I mean? Orando Laborando. Haha, baby. Again, look, it's there. Look, see it? Look, the heraldry on the fucking shield. Always the shields. Always the shield. But that's the schools. So, if this is the schools, yeah, what Knights Templars are running our schools, And there it is, look, that's what I was looking for. Look, there it is, 4 square represents 666. It's got 4 square and calm pisses in there. And there it is in the heraldry, look. I don't know what they are, but there it is, look, you see, and there's the 4 points. But look at the bishop's hat. You see what I mean? Look at it. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing. But there's the heraldry of that. You know what I mean? And there's 4 square. Always watch for the 4 square. You'll see it. Once you start picking it up, you'll start seeing that 13 points. Oh, what happened there? Oh, baby. So always keep an eye out for the 13 points. Okay? Oh, baby, because it makes 4 square and it represents 666. Oh, let me show you, just in case someone's new to the video. I'll just show you, right? Watch. Go to red, and I'll show you the 13 points, all right? Watch this. 13 points. Those who know my video should know this already. 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point, and then 2 point. So that's 7 total, yeah? Which we know makes the Masonic cube, yeah? Of Satan, yeah? There's your Masonic cube, yeah? There's a lot of symbolism in this, as you know. So that's 7, yeah? Then you've got 8, 9, that's your 9 points, and then 10, 11, 12, 13 points, which we know, as I've shown you many times before, makes the square and calm piss 4 times, like this, if we do it that way, yeah? That's what it means, the square and calm piss 4 times, and it's 4 square. You see, that's the 4 squares. See, we also know, if I just eradicate them, that the 9 steps in Freemasonry makes, and this is important, makes the which makes the swastika, yeah, because the Germans, yeah, and normally there's a circle round it like that, because they were the squares within the circle. You see. See, they were the squares, because when you square it off, they were the square. They were 4 square. You see, that was the Germans during the war. But they didn't educate you, obviously, on any of that. But anyway, that's another story. But always watch for this 4 square. It represents 666. And if I just go back now, boom. If I show you that, oh, where is it? Oh, there it is. And that's why we, and that's why we, during the war, oh, bloody thing. That's why during the war we were the point within the circle. That you see, the point within the circle. This is why we had this on the planes. Yeah, see, the Nazis were the 9 steps in Freemasonry, and when you squared it off, you got the square, and we were the points within the circle, the red point within the 2 circles. See, all Masonic symbolism where we fight each other during the war and they just come in and start shooting anyone and everyone. But again, look, Masonic, a memorial of schools of the United Kingdom, again, School of England, Morph Heraldy. Obviously, you can see, look, the old black griffin or whatever it is. You got the fleur de pis, look, the three claws and 3 hoofs, whatever that may be. But you run it through the square, you get the square and calm piss, of course. And I think that's a bear or a griffin or something. But again, it's the virtue, learning and manners. Not that we've learned anything coming up through the decades or century. You're more like chaos. And again, look, all the different schools, look, all the different heraldry, all the different shields, because it's all to do. The arms of other British universities are shown on this page, together with the arms of many of our famous public schools. In cases of the older schools like Eton, Winchester, Westminster, Rugby, Charterhouse and so on, these date back for hundreds of years and commemorate their founders. See? You know what I mean? The founders. Imagine that. Uppingham, Tonbridge, Westminster, Winchester, St. Paul's. You see what I mean? Notice everything's 3, look. Always a 3 or 4 square. See? But this is what you're dealing with, centuries and decades of Knights Templars, arms of schools, look, you see? Remember what that represents. That represents the Masonic Square, Trinity College, Stratford-on-Avon. That is your Trinity, the triple points, yeah, but it represents the square, the cube, yeah, of Satan sat on. But that's what you're dealing with, fleur de pis, look, you see? Knights Templar cross, see? It's all to do with everything, you see what I mean? And, and this is what people don't realise. You see, whatever you do, you're always dealing with Freemasons, whatever it is. Now we've got the bailiffs, yeah? The bailiffs that come around stealing your shit and your property, yeah? And again, look, they've signed it, yeah? But that's what a bailiff is, yeah? And you can see the phoenix and the crowns and all the rest of the bollocks, yeah? But what is a bailiff? Yeah, look, a bailiff history, family crest and coat of arms, okay? So this is your bailiff's coat of arms, yeah? The heraldry of it, the ancient arms, because they're ancient. And if you look at where I went in my town hall, our bailiffs go back to the 1500s, yeah? Where they were nicking pigs, sheep and cow and wheat off profane people and paying your taxes and all the rest of it. And they're still doing it today. It's just that they don't come round for your pigs and your sheep anymore. They come round for your cars and your TVs and your property. You know what I mean? But here it is. Etymology of bailiff, right? What does the name bailiff mean? The surname bailiff is derived from the Old French word baillis, which is the nominative form of the word bailiff. The name was originally occupational for a bailiff, a deputy of a king or lord, you see. And in that castle, yeah, when there was castles that were Masonic lodges, yeah, right? So when they were in the castle, this particular family, with this family crest, yeah, that was a bailiff, yeah, that was a special family, would go around, yeah, for the king or the lord to get duties, including collecting of rents and administrating justice in Wales. This name was for an agent of the English lords of the marches, yeah, and there it is, you see what I mean? Lords, dukes and earls, kings, queens, all the bollocks, yeah, and this is what they do, collecting rent, taxes and everything else when you don't pay. And if they don't pay, then they take your sheep and your pigs and your hay and your seed and your sowing and whatever else they do. The office being of reporters was usually held by the Normans of rank. Normans of rank, yeah? Read it yourself, yeah? This is what you're dealing with still today. Now, early origins of the bailiff family, yeah? See, because again, it's families, the heritage and everything else, yeah? The surname bailiff was first found in Glamorganshire, Welsh Sir Fornawang, a region of South Wales, anciently part of the Welsh kingdom of Granada, where they held a family seat from very ancient times, long before the Norman conquest in 1066. So just imagine, yeah, how far these bailiffs have gone round bashing people off their land and done all this trickery over the centuries and decades to what we've come up to today. And they're still ruling our towns, still ruling our cities, having all the wealth, having all the power, and we get nothing. Early history of the bailiff family. This webpage shows only a small excerpt of our bailiff research. Another 70, whatever that means, I don't know. But again, can you see the four square? Look, this is the Spencer family, yeah? The crown, look, but you have the four square, look, you see? Four square represents 666. And this is what you're getting all the time. Obviously, you've got the three shells or whatever they are. But again, it's heraldry, yeah? And families. Again, look, the Spencer coat of arms, yeah? Okay, remember they switch and change it to what they want. Now, like I said, you've got the Spencer family, like they say this is the main one with the four square and the three fleur de pis, right? Three fleur de pis, right? Going down the centre, right? But again, you notice these are the Spencers as well, and they got three Masonic seagulls at the top and three Masonic seagulls at the bottom, which are in the shape of a pyramid. Each and everything what you see is different, but it's another family that belongs to the Spencers that have married by or combined their two shields or whatever you want to call it. These families, they've married into each other. Your cousin has married my uncle and all of that bollocks, yeah. And so we'll make you a special family crest up, but you will always honour to us. And when we need your help, you will come and help us. Yeah, and that's what that basically means, you know. So this is like a Masonic seagull on the cliff slit. That's, you know, do you see what I mean? This is what they do, you know. But you will look after us, and then obviously on this side you've got the Masonic, whatever that bloody thing is on top of his head. But as his crown, again, you can see it. Look, it's three circles and three like bears or lions or cubs or whatever. And again, it's black and yellow. Remember, the colours are just as much as important as anything else, you know. So you've got the blue and white lodge, the red and white lodge, obviously the black and white as well. And then you've got the tan, I believe it's tan or yellow and black lodges, you know, because that's what you've got, you know. But that's the Spencer family. That's what you're dealing with all the time. And then we go the bailiffs, again, like I said, they're your crown. They look after, look, HM Courts and Tribunal Services, yeah. These bailiffs here, look, they're just Masonic Freemasons hiding their Masonic aprons. But each and every company, if you do the research, you know, just look up, I can't remember their name, Suter or whatever, you'll see it has 7 Masonic cubes in a particular fashion. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what they're, you know, again, it's all to do with the heraldry, you know, but that's what these people are. And they're not just normal Knights Templar, these are actual criminals, you know. And if you do the research into the companies, you'll find out they're bouncers and things like that, you know, and they're all belonging to crime lords. Do you know what I mean? And I can go more into that. But again, look at the enforcement agent, yeah. There's the heraldry of it, that you see, the family, the family credit. That's what your bailiffs are. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, your bailiffs are part of the crown. See, there it is, look, the heraldry of it, yeah. These are the people you're working for, look, High Court enforcement. And I work for this family to make sure you pay your pigs and sheep to us, or we'll take your cars and everything else we need to for this family that are greedy and have all the money in the world they want anyway. You know, and that's what you're dealing with, these sort of people, and they're working for, you know, they're treasonous. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what they're working for. Look, Greater Manchester Police, look, the heraldry. Oh, baby. But here you go. Again, look, City Council, you know what I mean? Heraldies are different councils, you know. The roll of arms, look, County Councils of the United Kingdom. Now, you tell me who's running the councils. Knights Templars, Masonic people wearing their Masonic aprons behind councils. These are all families that have killed, maimed, and done harm So lots and lots of many people within the UK, because this is what we're dealing with at the moment, the UK. See, this is the Scotland families, look. Scotland at the top. And then all these families hold allegiance to Scotland. But each family represents a different part or a different state of the country they're living in. Do you know what I mean? And there's England, look, you see, and these families here look after England, you see what I mean? These make up England, these different types of families. As you can notice, Scotland has less families to look after it. And then under that, look, again, look, you've got these families here, and you've got family here. This is Northern Ireland, and I suppose that's Southern Ireland. No, that's Wales. So Wales, look, has got a few, and then you got like Northern Ireland, which is as what you got there, 3, 4, 5, 6 families in Northern Ireland. You see what I mean? Well, that's the families you've got, and when they start or go to war, each and every one, you know, some of these here will skip over to this side and say, well, we're going to, you know, because they obviously want to, you know, they don't want to get eliminated or anything like that, but they normally, you know, protect themselves, you know, they imprison them or whatever, and, you know, keep the bloodlines fresh. But like I said, when they go to war, this is what you're fighting for, these people. And they mix amongst you, rally you together and go, come on, how many people can you get from your town, you know, to help us? You see what I mean? So each family will be the ones rushing you up. You know what I mean?